My friends, welcome back to another episode of Book of Kilian. I am your host, Kilian Weeks, here on YouTube. We are live with a friend over in Turkey, chatting with Andrew Jones of Discovered Media. I'm so very blessed to have you here. So thank you so much for setting aside the time to chat with me today, Andrew, about your journey. What I've done today is just put together a 22 slide presentation. So I'm hoping that will accompany us on our walk through your discoveries.
Sounds great. I'm happy to share. They're not my discoveries, but I'm here to share what I've learned over the years from Ron Wyatt and other researchers who've gone before us. And I'm happy to show people the sites in person or online via YouTube and these podcast interviews. So I'm very thankful to be here, and thank you for having me.
My absolute pleasure. And actually, you did touch on that, and I apologize for strawmanning that the original presentation of yourself. You connected with Mr. Ron Wyatt in a very, very organic way. And that was something that I just took in the other day, where like you would have done something that I would have done when a young lad is pick up the 311, right? If you
411, yes.
411, sorry.
Yes.
Can you just give us a quick shot of that?
Yeah, Ron Wyatt, I didn't know who he was, but I saw an advertisement. It might have been in our church, like bulletin or something. It said this guy was coming out for on a Thursday night. And I was in 7th or 8th grade, so this was like 1990 or 1991, and he was going to give presentations in one night about Noah's Ark, the Red Sea crossing, Mount Sinai in Arabia, etc. And so I wanted to hear about it because I was interested in archaeology as a kid, and so I asked my dad if he could go instead of me. And so my father went to the meetings. He came back and said, "Wow, yeah, this one guy said he found everything." So I was interested just to see what was true or not. And so I bought his book. I found out he had a book, but it was very brief on details. So I knew I had to somehow get a hold of him. In the early 90s, this was before the internet and before email and all that. And so I called the operator, and without telling my parents, I called, and they said, "Yeah, we have a Ron Wyatt in Madison, Tennessee." And so they put me right through, and he actually picked up. And I was just a kid, so I was like, "Well, hello." And I said I had some questions for him. Actually, had a list, and he told me he just got back, like he was walking in the door from a trip to the Middle East, and he said, "Call me tomorrow, I'll answer all your questions." So actually I called him 2 days in a row, and back then I didn't tell him this, but I was recording all the calls, and I had a little cassette recorder, and then I write down the answers. Like I had like my own, this was before I even had a computer, so I had my own transcripts. Sadly, I reused all those tapes. I only had a couple tapes left. I wish I kept them because I would talk to him a lot on the phone, or his wife. And I also talked to Dave Fazold, who worked with him on Noah's Ark a lot. And he was actually with Ron on his second trip to Mount Sinai in Arabia. And then, of course, I wrote letters and faxed and whatever, different people who were involved, those who were critics and those who were positive about what Ron was claiming. And so, yeah, that's how I got involved as a kid. I finally met Ron in person in 1995. Some friends of mine, we organized for him to come out to Northern California. And so he did some presentations in the Sacramento area where I lived, and also up north in Chico and Redding, California. And then we had him out the next year in 96. And then in 1997, it was my first time I finally went out to here where I'm at now in Eastern Turkey and saw the Noah's Ark site for the first time. Amazing. A friend of mine, he needed a travel companion, and we came out here together and spent about 5 days, I think, on the ground. And then I came back 3 years later in 2000 twice to Turkey, and also to Egypt and Israel for the first time. And just then it kept kind of coming back almost every summer since then. So
amazing. Well, I'm going to get into the presentation, share this because I know that there's going to be a lot of discussion that comes up through this, and thank you so much for that intro.
Yeah.
So you made some videos, pardon me?
You made some videos.
Well, I collected, like as I said, curated your site, your YouTube channel, and kind of pulled some stuff off that I felt was fitting to help us along. So this first video revealed the real Mount Sinai, hidden for centuries. I thought this was just a beautiful, obviously, of the work that you've been doing out there.
Yeah, this is some of our first drone video, September of 2016, our second trip to Saudi Arabia. I remember flying over the camels and they were starting to run. They were like, "What is this big mechanical insect?"
Amazing,
That's just east of Mount Sinai. That's Wadi, kind of like Wadi Rum,
right?
the
It's the Red Sea
Hisna
crossing.
Desert. Yeah, this is the Red Sea. We climbed up those mountains there on the Saudi side. Got a good view looking over towards Egypt. We had
So
to sneak these drone shots back then between the Coast Guard their
really,
patrols. Yeah, they had patrols every 30 minutes there. This is Wadi Tebizim, one of the proposed oasis for Elam. And
in the Oasis, yeah.
this is Wadi Tebizim Canyon, water coming out of the ground. We were there one year and we had they're harvesting dates, and the locals gave us
Harvesting dates.
June of 2018, I believe it was. Yeah, and they have a bunch of wells there. Now there are actually 12 wells. So it's
I
interesting.
heard I heard about the wells. That's
Now they're modern cemented up, but maybe they on the original sites where the wells were. And they do that because they have floods through that area. They don't want the debris to fall into the well. Of course, the famous split rock found by Jim and Penny
dude.
Caldwell in the early
And
'90s.
it's, to me, I had to say, it looks like praying hands almost. You have the
Yeah,
thumb.
everyone has talked about it. It looked like a hand or the
Yeah,
Spock.
that's amazing.
But
That's
this
absolutely
has got to be one of my like favorite sites on our first trip. This and climbing Mount Sinai.
amazing.
Just seeing it's more spectacular when you're there because it's such a huge rock and it's on top of
Yeah,
the
yeah,
hill
right.
itself. It's about 72 feet tall. We have a 3D digital model we made of the site from photogrammetry photos with the drone, so we can do
Okay.
exact measurements and make 3D models of it.
So how have you? Do you know what that measurement is? Where the split itself?
Well, I would have to measure again. I know
That's
from bottom of the rock to the top, it's 70 or 72 feet.
okay.
And here's
And
the
the
cow
Golden Calf
petroglyphs.
altar.
Yeah, right in front
Sorry,
of the mountain is a whole bunch of huge boulders and this is at the base. That one there.
and the altar.
Yeah, this is the Saudis call a what do you call it? A house for the marble workers. Ron and others believed it was the animal corral. That's an amazing view when you get up to the cave. There's only one cave out, so that's why people call this the cave of Elijah. And there's the mountain in the background with the golden calf altar in the front there.
Right. And so there's only one cave, you said, for Elijah's
Yeah,
cave?
yeah. So I mean, people ask, well, why do you call it Elijah's cave? I mean, there are rock overhangs all through the mountain range, but
Right.
on that peak, there's only one cave looking out over, like you're looking out
Over.
onto the encampment plain to the east.
Wow. So it's literally like by the process of elimination, right? It's
Yeah,
almost like it
exactly.
has
Now,
to be.
if there's a whole bunch of caves, and we could say, well, this is one of the possibilities, but
Right?
because it's only one, I think it's likely that he would have chosen that one.
Absolutely amazing, bro. Holy smokes.
This is from the summit. You're looking north there towards the actual peak of Jebel al-Lawz in the distance. There's the northern route, that valley down there, one
Okay.
of the proposed routes to the front of the mountain, which you briefly saw there. And this is our
And I
very
can
first time we brought a drone up.
so who's
Uh,
that with you?
Adam, he was one of the
Okay.
photographers, and
All right.
he would run all over the place and get all the shots we needed. And he carried the drone all the way to the top. Of course, we had a smaller drone. That was February 2017. And this is from the plateau, a shot that Nathan got looking towards the southern peak there. It was an amazing shot with the bush there. And this is the dead tree that's above the cave of Elijah. Some call the
That's
the
you.
rock, yeah, standing on the very top. But some think that's
Archaeological
where
area.
Moses
So,
stood.
so question being, let me stop here for a quick second.
Yeah.
How sensitive is this area from from an
Well, now
official
it's
standpoint?
well. I mean, I don't know how to say it because in the past you were not allowed to go even in the area around it, even outside the fence. They'd kick you out.
Okay.
Now the Saudi tour guides and official tour companies, they bring you inside these sites. Like the gate is open, or the gate or the fence, which the fence at the base of the mountain has been knocked down since the mid-90s. A storm knocked it down, and it's been that way all
Interesting.
this. It's been that way all this time. So when we first went there in 2016, we just walk across the fallen down fence. Now this sign here is in front of the Golden Calf altar site.
Okay.
But that used to be when we first went there, it was locked, the gate, and so the locals showed us a way in under the fence. But
Nice.
since they opened up tourism in September 2019, the gate has been unlocked, and so you can just walk right in officially and not get in trouble.
Okay.
Now, thankfully, no one has damaged the cow petroglyphs there, because they are fragile, like you see
Right.
here on this. But yeah, it's open to anyone to walk right in.
Love it. Well, that's the first one.
Oh, you got a bunch
another
here.
one. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Dude,
so this is
trust me.
driving in from the north on the very bumpy road, which is different now. They have a couple roads built in there, a surface road and a new paved road they're making, so it's easy to get to the Split Rock. So that's really interesting that they're changing.
So this one, this
Let's
was the
see,
news feature.
CBN. Yes, one of the
Yeah, the
reporters,
CBN.
Chuck Holton, he was on our
Yeah.
March 2022 trip, and I'm trying to remember. So this shot here, I don't know. That's not one of ours. He might have gotten it from another news source or from Neom. That's definitely not our shot. I don't recognize the guy in white there. This is definitely Wadi Rum. Now that's one of our drone shots right there. This is all.
I'm actually gonna. I think the audio might be coming through on my end. I'm gonna just mute it because I obviously want.
I don't hear it over here, so.
Yeah. No, I think I've muted the audio. Quick second. All right, let me just mute that. There we go. All right, now it's rolling. So yeah, this is you guys going through.
Yeah, the rest I think is just Saudi Neom videos. That's our shot. That's Neom,
and that's the big thing.
Saudi.
Yeah,
this is their marketing video.
So it's like 3 different sites, correct?
A lot more than that now.
Oh,
no,
really?
A lot more. Yeah, because they have a lot of resort sites for the super rich. Really high-end hotels are building across this area. The main sites, the big sites are the Lion City, which you saw there, then the Trojena Resort up on Jebel El Laz, just north of Mount Sinai. And then there's a floating resort out in the Red Sea. Those are the biggest sites. Then they have a lot of smaller resorts. This is they call the Caves of Jethro in Al-Bada, the traditional site where Jethro lived. So that's the modern town name is Al-Bada. Yeah, that's Northwest Arabia where we're at now. We filmed this one in an oasis. That shot was in actually Sinai Peninsula in Egypt. Chuck had met up with our tour group there in Egypt. Okay. Yeah, I remember that shot. Cedric was flying the drone over me. That's what and this is the Elam Oasis, proposed Elam Oasis. Now they mistitled that. I'm not an archaeologist. I'm a wannabe, but I love archaeology.
Yeah.
Yes,
that's actually been one of the big questions that have come back. Like a lot of the naysayers are like, "Well, what makes Ron Wyatt special?" He was literally just an anesthesiologist, I believe, with
nurse
dentistry.
Anesthetist, yeah. Here we are.
And this is the evidence of the stream. Sorry, like we're skipping all over.
Yeah.
But
and Chuck, this is the Wadi Taibism Oasis again, the proposed Elam site. One of our first drone videos of that site. Chuck was awesome. Him and his wife, they climbed to the very top of Mount Sinai, like the fastest I've known someone to do it. And in fact, we didn't believe that they made it to the top. We thought because they went on their own somewhere. Right. And so we were all doubting them, and I kind of felt bad. And then when we saw the news report, like 11 months later, and they're filming from the very summit, I'm like, oh, they did make it.
Yeah, it was. I think he said he made it up there in 2.5 hours.
Yeah, they got right up there.
It was because he gives a talk at the end of this, and I was he said he made it up in 2.5 hours, and I was like, whoa.
This is a movie film company, production company out there. It's a
Okay.
permanent base they have in the Hizma Desert, just south of Mount Sinai, near Bajda, and for their films. Here we are at the base, looking up the famous angle of Jebel Makla with the blackened rock. Here we're at where the marble pillars are at the
The
base of the
marble
mountain.
pillars. Yeah, so these were the pillars that Moses, I
That's
believe
one of the
commissioned.
proposed. That's one of the proposed ideas. Ron Wyatt believed King Solomon actually set these up as a shrine because he saw an inscription that we haven't seen yet. But and then of course the Saudis believe it's Nabatean,
Right.
which is during the time of Christ. Yeah, I gave Chuck all my footage, and so they kind of just put everything together for the news report.
Yeah.
I really like this shot. When you get clouds out there and blue sky, it gives us dramatic scenery with the drone. And we're out in the plain where the Israelites would have encamped. And that's one of the pointers for this site is that you have these huge plains to the south and to the east.
And that's one of the things I love about your work is it gives you give so much depth and perception to what's actually happening. Like the drone footage is amazing and very, very authentic and real feel to your findings or to
It's
the
a different,
discoveries.
yeah, you get a different feel and view when you're up in the air. So drones have changed everything. Of course, this is another drone shot. When you can fly fast and low, it gives a great perspective of the vastness of the plane. Yeah,
And
here
there
they
he
are.
is.
Yeah, and so our whole group doubted they made it up there. They went so fast.
Bang, right on the top.
Here he is.
This
A friend of mine
this
put that pile of stones there. I remember the first couple of years after they opened for the tourist visas, different groups would come back saying, "Oh, Moses or somebody put an altar on top of the mountain." I'm like, "No, no, no." Actually, my friend Nathan, he stuck that up there in 2017. He built that.
Yeah, that's absolutely amazing. And this is the scene that blew me away to think like if it
Yeah,
is in fact if it
I
is in
like.
fact the spot where God communed with
This is
Moses.
great. Yeah. Oh, where he's standing and his wife does that shot where she's coming with the
Beautiful.
camera like that. It's really great view.
Agreed.
And then okay, yeah,
Sorry,
that was the storm that came through.
the sunset. I wanted to share this as well.
Yeah, we did a time lapse at the base. This was the fall. Well, this was November of well, it's a mix actually. So we had a storm come um, in March of last year. And then we did a sun set time lapse in November of 2022. But we had this huge storm that hit the Gulf of Aqaba, and I was in Hackle at the time, and I got the alerts because the Saudi government sends out weather alerts via SMS texting. So I had a local SIM card, so I got an alert saying there's a big storm coming. Be careful out in the desert. So I checked out of my hotel really quick, and I jumped in the car, and I drove all the way, like an hour and a half drive to the base of Mount Sinai. I got ahead of the storm,
Yeah.
or almost, and then I flew the drone, set up my cameras. We got the storm coming, over the summit. And then by the time I was done with this shot, I went down to the base where you parked the cars, and it was hailing and lightning and thunder, and it was an amazing feeling to be there, thinking what it might have been like when the Ten Commandments were being given. It talks about in Exodus chapter 19, the thundering, the lightning, the earthquake. And so it was a small taste of probably what it was like when the Israelites were there.
And see to have somebody who understands scripture and what was written, at the account at the time when this was happening, and then you're also in the same breath visiting the actual place, for you to be able to wrap that and then present it back out again, brother, like this makes scripture become alive.
Yeah, it's amazing because what type of site you have that would, like, maybe you could find a site and say maybe this is Mount Sinai and it fits some of the criteria, but when you're there and you can see how every single verse fits, like it has to be the true Mount Sinai. Now there's difference of opinion on some of the specifics, like which wadi, which valley the Israelites would have walked up from point A to point B, but the general idea that Mount Sinai is in Arabia, I think more and more people are accepting.
Right. Especially when you start looking at the Red Sea crossing and the columns that were one obviously tipped over, was worn away, but the other one is still standing upright. It really starts to give a lot of and like I believe you guys have done some elevation mapping as well, just how deep the floor bed went, or the seafloor went
Yeah.
at that
In
crossing point, right?
March and May of 2019, we were the only group, and still the only group, that got permission to go out on a boat with sonar and even with a drone and map out there, as far as they let us go out from shore. And now, sadly, they've shut down boat access. They're saying they're doing environmental work for NEOM. So we used to bring tour groups out there on boats, but now we
Right.
can't for the Saudi side.
So my first question is specifically to you: what is your typical day like?
Well, depends.
Right.
I just got back to Eastern Turkey. I was uh, for like 4 or 5 days in Greece with a friend of mine. But when we're doing tours, it's a full day. It's not just you're with the tour group, so you're out there from breakfast until before right when you go to bed. And so even after the tourists go to bed, I'm usually up responding to emails, planning out the next day's stuff, um, you know things like that, or working on a YouTube video. And so when it's busy days, like sometimes the back-to-back tours, when you go from Egypt to Saudi to Jordan, and then sometimes to Israel, you have 2 or 3 weeks where you're just nonstop busy.
Nonstop.
And then I take like 2 or 3 weeks after that off just to recover from doing that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just depends what the day. And so yeah, it can be very busy, and other times just at my desk working on videos or answering emails.
And are you the only person doing production, so to speak? Or do you have
Yeah,
a team
well,
that
it
helps?
depends on the budget or what the project is.
Okay.
So I learned my lesson. My first is actually, yeah, my first and second and third trips to the Middle East. I was 1997, and then in 2000, I was in college and I was working as a computer programmer in 2000, and I did everything myself. And I remember having a Mamiya medium format camera that a friend loaned me, and then I had my own DSLR camera, and I tried to do everything. And it's just so much work. And so later, like around 2000, I think it was 13 and 14, we started coming back to Turkey. I wanted to do a film about Noah's Ark, which later we decided just to do a bunch of YouTube videos. But I brought in friends who like knew what they're doing, so I didn't have to
Nice.
learn everything. And so
Yep.
friends who were like freelancers or just took classes in college, who knew what to do and had the ability to take time off, they would just come along. So we just pay their way, and they would film for us. And so yeah, that's usually how it worked out. Now with the smaller cameras, like I do most of the drone shots myself,
Right.
and so with the small cameras and with the even like the DJI Osmo Pocket, which can follow you as you move around,
Right.
you can become a one-man production and just set the camera up on a tripod, and the camera will just follow you as you're walking and
As well.
talking. So yeah,
Your
it all depends on what we're trying to do and the
your
budget.
shorts. What I really wanted to say, the thing that I really appreciate about your channel is your shorts. Just even your footage. And I have a couple pieces loaded from like the garden and the tomb, but
Ah,
that gives such an again, an authentic feel to it. And it's like exactly what needs to be captured in order to portray the works, right?
you know, I was avoiding shorts for a long time, and then we had just out of the blue, we had this guy from Florida who has a Spanish channel, and he got interested in all this, and he came out with his wife, and he has one arm, he had a motorcycle accident, and he wanted to climb Mount Sinai. So I met them for the first time out there, and he was like telling me about all what he was doing with TikTok, and he gets millions of views and making all this money, and he wanted to do stuff for God because he just became saved in the last couple of years. And so he gave me all these tips. He said, Andrew, shorts are the way to go. Don't forget your long form videos, but start posting daily as many times as you can. And so he gave me all these different tips for what he was doing on TikTok. And so he made all these videos about Mount Sinai and his trip to Saudi Arabia. And he was there end of February last year, and first of March. And anyways, about a month later, he sent me a message and says, "Hey, all my shorts." He said the total views for all his shorts he put out on TikTok and Instagram was close to like 39 or 49 million views. And so that got me inspired. Like, what? So all these people are seeing this information about Mount Sinai and the Exodus. And so I still didn't really I did some on TikTok. I don't really have much going on TikTok. I need to figure that platform out.
Right.
But on YouTube, I started just really doing daily shorts end of November of last year. And that, with a couple of our long form videos that went viral with Pastor Jim Scudder
Okay.
and a Ron Wyatt video from 1984, where he's talking about the Ark of the Covenant. It
Got that
just
coming
a
up.
couple, just a couple. It was Friday evening. We hit
Yeah.
100,000 subscribers on YouTube, and so I had some shorts coming out about that. We made a special cake, and I went out to the Noah's Ark site with Nuri, and then I went to Zafir's Cafe and my friends out here who help us. And so, anyways, I haven't put anything out about that yet, and I haven't actually put up shorts in a couple days. But yeah, so
That's
that's kind of
awesome, dude.
the background. But it's helped our channel grow a lot by just being consistent with
Yeah.
these shorts. So
That's what I've heard. Like YouTube requires consistency, and I mean, God's word, right? So when you are visiting Mount Sinai, how far away are you staying from it?
It depends. If I'm with a tour group, we're usually about an hour, hour and a half away at where the hotels are.
Okay.
Sometimes we camp at the base, depending on who wants to do that. If the
Right.
group is, people who love to camp or not. On my own, I sleep in the car. I have
Wow.
tents too, so I can camp out or just sleep in the back of the truck or the SUV. So yeah, sometimes. And I've slept a couple times on the mountain. I think 3
Really?
times now. Yeah.
What was that like?
Well, the first time I was on the very summit, the North Peak, which is the tallest peak. That was a little not scary. I was by myself because my friends were down in the valley, in between the ridges, the peaks, and I decided to stay on the top summit. And it was so windy, and on the west side of that peak, it's a really large cliff, like this big drop off going straight down. And I was very near that, but I was laying on the ground. And then middle of the night, I remember the stars being just like you could reach out and touch them. It was an amazing feeling, but it was just super windy up on that mountain. This was April of 2018, and I felt like I would be blowing off the mountain. So I was like praying, okay, God, keep me. I was like staying flat on the ground with my sleeping bag.
Reduce the wind.
Yes, I don't want to become a sail and get
So
tossed
I
off the
pulled
mountain.
the double
Oh,
rainbow feature that
that
you just because of the promise, right?
that and the shot, it's always because the sun usually always sets to the west, so the way the sun hits when there's a storm in the afternoon, you get the rainbow just to the south or north, which is downhill from the arc site right there. See, it's still raining when I'm filming this, and so we got the bow wasn't right over the arc, but you can see where it started. It was a double bow.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was amazing. We just ran outside the visitor center. I was with Dr. Sally Brock Tuton that trip, who's the retired geologist who's been studying this site and believes it's Noah's Ark. And I was with Nuri. Yeah, and amazing. Like you see the blue sky and the white clouds.
And just
Yeah.
again, what's written in scripture, right? Every time you
Yeah.
see that rainbow, know that
It
it's
was
a
so
covenant.
clear. Yeah, it was amazing symbol, obviously associated with the ark, to see it right there at the ark site.
That's awesome. So this is my own little piece that I put together, but it's actually the intro to my my page. But I just mentioned, Genesis 6:14, build thee an ark, 300 cubits in length.
Yeah, I think this is from the narration we did with Ron's voice using our drone video.
Yeah.
And this is the valley that Ron believed the ark came down, like the original landing site up there by the Iranian border.
The rock that it was impaled on as it got pushed.
Yeah, there's a big boulder in the middle there. Correct. Yeah.
Right.
And Ron
So
believed
the
that was
idea with
air.
the preservation of the ark is that it was an erupted volcano, basically, that had like wrapped it in lava, so to speak, encasing it, if you will, and preserving it. Correct?
That's what Ron believed. I think now the idea is that it's a mixture of mud, and because you also have other type of stones out there, not just volcanic. You have sedimentary rock. We find fossils out there on the arc site or around it, above it. So basically, the idea is that yes, it did get covered up, and then brought down the side of the mountain from higher up.
Right. Very cool. So I pulled up this one, the visitation center. If you could just give us, a quick chat about the visitation center and how it's been developed.
Yeah. Well, it was the original building was built in 1988, obviously due to Ron Wyatt's work, and they dedicated this national park. Then it was just kind of abandoned. And in 2017, they renovated the inside. They left it alone. They put in all the wood paneling, and then it kind of abandoned again. And then 2021, I think it was, that we started, or 22, we started the renovation work. Or 22. I remember the grand opening was October of 2022.
22.
And the villagers was able to basically get control of the building from the government agency, and then we partnered up with them to renovate the building. It had nothing in it, so we redid all the toilets. We put in a little cafe, a kitchenette for Nuri to serve chai and drinks and whatever. We put in a media center in one of the rooms, and with a large television inside so they can watch video clips. And then the middle area, we put these big displays that gives like an overview of the Noah's Ark discovery. Mentioning Captain Drupinar.
Look at
yeah,
you.
so when
So
you
proud
walk
of you,
out
man.
there,
Awesome.
it's kind of sped up there, but yeah, here's the inside. So you see all the wooden panels they put in back in 2017, I believe it was, and
Yep.
then these big displays we put up September and early October of 2022, and
Amazing.
remember working on that project. We got that all up, but now they're going to build a brand new center over this building. So
Really?
we a local businessman has talked about doing this, and I believe they're going to break ground this spring. So we'll see what happens, and it will be it would be kind of a low profile, but Noah's Ark shape style building. So it'd be kind of cool looking sitting up there. So
Awesome. And so from a standpoint of, and I say this obviously like 100% respectfully, the recognition that this is in fact Noah's Ark, is it official? You know what I mean? Like from a standpoint of like, take it, or
like you mean like the government official? I don't know of the government, it's official for them for tourism. They see the dollars. So that's why they built the visitor centers to make it easier for visitors to go up there, because they saw all the tourist potential, and they saw tourists going up there wanting to take pictures.
Right.
In regards, I don't know if the government would ever, unless you excavate and finally see a hall down there and rooms and whatever, then at this point, what you have, the most official thing done is you have a sign saying, Noah's Ark 5 kilometers up the mountain, a building there. They'll have news reports about the scientists working on it, but that's as official as it gets. There are multiple claims as to where Noah's Ark is. There's a couple sites on the big stratovolcano of Mount Ararat that people promote or are researching or trying to find. There are sites. There's a site in Iran that Bob Krenuk has researched. There's a couple sites in southern Turkey that people have promoted as being the real Mount Ararat with Noah's Ark. So yeah, there's different opinions. This site, we believe it's the best evidence so far. And just like Mount Sinai, I believe Jebel Makla is the best candidate for Mount Sinai, unless someone shows me another mountain that fits better.
Right.
And so same with the Ark site. Unless somebody shows something else better, then it's just a lot of stories out there, or theories.
Yeah.
And at least we have a site we can research.
That's one of the things that really stuck out, is sussing out the difference of like the idea of the Hebrewic cubit versus the Egyptian cubit, and how that length difference would have been different, if you will. But then quickly realizing that Moses was raised by Egyptians, he would have written and communicated in Egyptian, and the measurement of 20.6 inches is what the Egyptian cubit breaks down to be, like the forearm length. So, finding something this as I respectfully call it, a pile of dirt that's 515 feet in length seems to be bang on.
Well, in the past, before you had Google Satellite and Western tourists, or just tourists in general, coming out to Eastern Turkey, it was a very remote area. And so when you have a couple of people go out there, 100 years ago, and either, they have that thing called Jerusalem syndrome, where you go to Jerusalem and you have this psychological thing happen to you. You think you're going to find something, or you claim you found something related to the Bible. I think you had these different reports people say, "Oh, I saw the ark, a perfectly preserved boat up on the top of this volcanic mountain that now we know was formed after the flood."
Right.
Is built on a floodplain of deposits and whatever. But so people would believe that. The church would hear stories of like, "Oh yeah, there's these stories of people who've been up on the mountain, one or two here and one or two over there." And but now you have every year. In fact, I just met this French lady who's going to climb. She's here in the area. She's going to climb up the mountain. Every year you have a lot of Europeans and Russians and even Americans who climb to the summit, and even local Turks. It's a sports activity here. Plus, you have ark hunters, and so no one has seen any boat up there.
Yeah.
And plus now you have Google Satellite. 30, 40 years ago, you never had that access, but now you can see objects that are down to a foot or two or less
Right.
from the air, and no one's finding a boat that you can actually go up and say, "Hey, we found Noah's Ark." And so if you look at other archaeological sites that have decayed boats, this is the type of thing you're going to expect. Look at these photos here, the black and white photos from the 59 and 60 expedition, and then 61, our Guler, Turkish photographer. This is our drone photos there, and this Ron Wyatt photos. Again, what it shows is what you expect of a wooden boat after thousands of years, leaving this shape, things being decayed, splayed out, broken down, buried by dirt. You see that with the Viking burial ships, with Roman ships, other ships that are sunken in the ocean, that's in the sediments. This is what you would expect to see of Noah's Ark, not a perfectly preserved ship just sitting there waiting for somebody to walk upon it and go into the rooms.
Exactly.
Yeah, this is the 60 object or 59 photograph that, the guy, Captain Druppner, he found it on September 11, 1959. Interesting day. And then a week later, it hit the Turkish press. And then the next month, the photographs were in the news around the world.
Amazing.
Now, that's from the metal detector scans that Ron and others did. That's what they connected the dots with construction tape. And this is from the 2021 Turkish scientist doing the research on the site.
And the measurements.
9.2, because we have
10.8.
Well, I'm not. I'm sorry. Go ahead with the question.
No, I was just curious about because the measurements that start to come out of this thing, that show what's going on. That's the thing that blows me away.
Yeah, we're going to have some special. We have some more information about that because we had a geophysicist with 40 years experience reanalyze our data from the 2019 scans that we did, with the Science Channel out there filming back in October of 2019, and that's actually what's on your screen now is an overview of the GPR work that year. Right. Anyways, so what you see there was actually from the analysis done about 2 or 3 months later. But then we gave all the raw data to this lady who has all this experience and said, "Hey, just tell us what you see in this. Is there anything interesting?" And I did a podcast. I actually did a lecture for a creation group in January, and we showed some of that. I made a couple of videos with it, but what it's showing is that there's actually a tunnel. I call it the central hallway, but there's an underground tunnel about 5, 6, 7 meters down where it starts.
Right.
And it's a number of meters deep that you can actually walk through it. So it's still not filled in with mud. And it goes down the center of that uphill part of the boat formation, down to the middle.
Gotcha.
And right below where this rock is, below it, she said there's this huge open area, kind of like a central atrium that would have been open through all the floors. Of course, the top being all destroyed now.
That's the thing that catches me is it's the 3-story building or 3 stories, right? And you have that central gangway, almost where you would obviously lead the animals up and lead them into the different quarters wherever they were going to, right? But it gives a real feel to the actual function of how this would have operated.
Yeah, so we're going to make a model of the data, and we still haven't released all the information because I'll just say it here that I won't show it, but I'll say it, and that we have seen with the GPR, this new analysis, is actually showing a grid work almost like the pattern of rooms for that bottom, you want to call it deck, or right below the central hallway here that you see on your screen.
Yep.
On the next level down, we're actually seeing a grid work, these faint lines showing up on the GPR. We're at the very bottom of what GPR is pulling up. This was a 100 megahertz antenna, which goes, some of the deepest you can get, depending on the soil condition and all that. But at any rate, we had some more data, and so we would like to put all that together with a 3D model of what it's showing. So hopefully this summer we'll have some more information to share.
Awesome. I'm just breezing through these last clips. Now, getting into the site at the garden, the Skull of Golgotha, and now you're walking in the garden.
Yeah, this was Ron Wyatt excavated in the late 70s and 80s. And then I was the part of the video team that where they reopened the excavation in 2003, actually 2005 and 6, and they closed it down in 2007.
Right. 2007, they closed it down.
Yeah, and then they built that platform you see over there, right over the site, filled in the whole, the big hole, excavation pit with gravel. Right. So the whole thing's filled in underneath that platform. Here we are, just kind of fast walking. Fast walking. Yeah, it's a video. I sped it up because you only get 1 minute with YouTube Shorts.
Yeah.
So it's going from the skull face all the way to the tomb. It's a beautiful site. I love being there, and just you can meditate and pray. And I've had tour groups there where obviously you can do communion and So
one of the things I took in, obviously with these accounts you never know what's true, but I took in the account of Pontius Pilate when in the sentencing of Jesus and things like that. And one of the things that was mentioned in this testimony that I was taking in was that he posted 100 soldiers throughout the garden to guard against the theft of the body from the Friday to the Sunday, which I thought was really interesting, because from a standpoint of, we knew that the disciples were not supposed to, or the apostles were not supposed to go because of the potential theft of the body and things like that. And everybody knew that, he was going to be resurrected. But to know that that was the kind of, the amount of people, soldiers deployed in that area that all worked on shift to guard against
a dead body. The fear that the priests at the time had, and obviously the Romans, that still doesn't stop Christ from coming forth. Amazing. Right. Obviously it wouldn't stop him.
And then this one was a slow one.
This is just of the tomb itself. I forget, people who go there, if they want to do a video of the site. I remember when we were there, we had there's less tourists. I forget what time of year I was there for this shot, but you can also contact the Garden Tomb, and if you're doing a project they like, they'll give you access an hour before it opens. So like 7 o'clock or something, or half an hour before it opens, and you can go in there when no one's around and film. So I've done that.
Before. This wasn't the where he was laid, right? They had to dig out a little bit more because he was longer than they originally anticipated.
That's the theory, yes. That this was, a tomb made for Joseph or Arimathea, and then when he offered to have his tomb used for Christ, they had to quickly enlarge it for the body.
Okay, all right.
So it's a very special place.
Seriously. Now, here's where I have some pictures that I lifted from Ron Wyatt's video, but it was a gentleman with gray hair and a gray beard that was presenting the furnace, if you will, at Mount Sinai.
Jim. Yeah.
Jim, thank you very much.
He was
I was like, dude, I didn't want to mess up his name.
I forget his last name now. No, Schindel or... Anyways, it was called Jim. That's his first name. Yeah, he was on my Noah's Ark tour in 2019, the summer of 2019. And then he went to Mount Sinai with a small group, tour group we had in December of 2000, the year before last, 2022. And I showed them the site. Now, Go ahead if you had some questions about it, because
Yeah, well, I mean, what it is right now is just what's on
ah
screen is showing the
oh okay
location of the crossing.
it's a good
Oh,
overview. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. Just a
yeah,
map of the
yeah,
area, but then getting down into more of a drone view of the entire area. So you've got the Golden Calf Altar location, along with the lake bed.
yeah,
So this all kind of checks out from your perspective and what you've been
yeah.
looking at as well.
Yes. If you had specific questions about his video, I could talk about it.
Yeah,
But from this photo, no, this is all. There's
awesome.
nothing
Okay,
changed.
so this is what was presented as Leal's, sorry, metallurgy workshop,
Yeah.
and this is why I got really, really like this piqued my curiosity. So this would be the area where, or the kilns, if you will, where they actually worked with the different metal workings.
Well, okay. Let's back.
Okay,
Let's first let me explain what happened on that trip,
okay,
and then my view of it all.
please.
And then people can take what they want.
Yeah,
So
dude.
first of all, this is our December 2022 trip, and we had some extra time, and so I took the group up to the plain where the Israelites encamped. And on the way in, I think this is our second time in that area, or maybe this is our first and only time. But I told the guys, hey, we have some extra time. Do you want to see something new? And because I had noticed over the last year or two before that, when you're driving in and out, there's this almost like a perfect stone tower up on the ridge beside the dirt road. And most people just drive right by because it's kind of a low profile, so kind of it blends in
Okay.
with the ridge. Now nearby there are other stone piles, and so anyways, we stopped the car and we all got out and we hiked up to the stone pile and we're looking at it, just taking pictures and whatever. And about 5 feet away, I don't know if there's a photograph of this one, but about 5 feet to the north of that stone tower, you're seeing the picture there, is this flat bedrock. The stone tower is built on huge slabs of bedrock.
Right.
And one of the guys in the group, Bob, I was kind of away from the area, and he yelled out, "Hey, I think I," kind of a joke. I think he said, I found where they made the shoes." And so I walked over to see what he was joking about. And these are these depressions
Hmm.
in the stone. And so I put my foot in one and I looked at it. And then I blurted out, I said, "Oh, in Metsamor, which is in Armenia," I told the group that they had the metallurgical site there, which is from the Bronze Age and earlier maybe, but it's an important metallurgical site in Armenia. They the molds for the metal was actually built into the bedrock. And I have a photograph. I was there in 2017, and it shows like the pattern of metal, like rods, whatever they're making in Armenia, it all lined up, and so the metal would pour down. It's kind of on a slope, so the metal would pour, the liquid metal would pour into there, and it'd have these molds. So I kind
Okay.
of said that about that, and everyone's like, "Oh, maybe this is where they." I don't know who first said this is where they made like something for the tabernacle. Like,
Dude,
um,
well,
well, so
that's
yeah, there's the photo, and so I actually went back to the site multiple times after that. We flew with the drone over it in February of 2023 last year,
right.
and then I have this lidar app that will let you make very detailed 3D models. So I have
Right.
it on my phone, and you can export it to 3D print it or to measure it on a website or whatever on your computer. And so I made 3D models of all these sites that we found there, the stone mold sites we call them. But so then, of course, that was the end of the trip. Nearby, of course, is this other site where the stones have ribs in it, and so again, I don't know who said what on the first, but it doesn't matter. But basically, the idea got out that yeah, that this is where they made the cherubim wings for the Ark of the Covenant. Again, this is 20 minutes on the site where no one's doing any really scientific study. We're just taking pictures and talking.
Yeah.
I get, the group leaves. Jim puts out a video. I don't know how soon after that on his own channel, which is the video is private now. But he and I emailed back and forth about it, and I told everyone, including Bob and everyone else who's asking, like, what's the latest on this? I said, "Look, I haven't finished doing research.
Mhm.
They're asking me because I keep going back and forth, every month almost back in the winter months to Saudi Arabia. So from a tourist perspective, I'm the only guy who's going to be on the ground doing this. So they're asking me for updates."
Right.
And so I told them I didn't have anything new, and said just hold off, like don't put stuff out there
Yeah.
until we want to protect it. Number one, if it is real. If number
Hmm.
two, if it's not a real site, we don't want to make tabloid announcements about nothing.
Yeah.
Just, So, anyways, then by July, I think it was, he did a presentation. And that's what they put out on the Wyatt channel. Then it got hundreds, it goes viral, and the title was like new discovery and all the stuff. So that's the background. Let me
Hmm.
explain what I've found, and I haven't made the video yet about this. I had other things I wanted to do first, but I'll make a response because again, I think we jumped the gun on this. That's
Okay.
why I didn't put anything else out because I wasn't done studying it,
Yep.
and I don't think anyone else has really put something out. I mean, there's people ask me all the time, "What do you know about this site?" Yeah, I took my tour group to it. We discovered it, but I told them I don't think it is what's being presented as.
Right.
So
And
let
I
me,
have to say, Andrew, right quickly, I
yeah,
appreciate how transparent and honest you are with everything, honestly. And to me, like the sincere, humble, meek approach to this entire thing is what literally sets you apart from the potentials of other people who have done this, right? It's just like obviously approaching this with respect and humility and engaging with what you can rationalize as being the truth. I really appreciate your honesty, dude.
well, I mean, I don't want to be the guy who knows something otherwise, but putting out something else just to get a name for myself, or say it's or even having good intentions, saying it's to prove the Bible. I don't
Right.
want to make up false stuff just to try to prove like this is the real Mount Sinai because there's other stuff that's really there that proves it's Mount Sinai that this doesn't. You don't
Hmm.
have to like make up data. And so the first thing I like to say is the stone pile that they're calling the furnace. Um, and again, I'll show the examples. I don't have it on my computer to share with you, but in my video, I'll share it. Those stone piles, they're known as tower tombs, and they're all over northwest Saudi Arabia, exactly like that one. That's not a unique furnace. They call it a furnace, but when you look at it, there's really not. Which if you compare it to look online to like Bronze Age furnaces where they melted or smelted, iron or metal or whatever type, silver, gold. Um, and then compare it, what's actually found in there to all the other ones in the area. And now this one, we didn't find any bones in it, but of course it's been open to the public for thousands of years.
Right.
Some of these stone sites have been collapsed in because people have dug into there looking for treasures and whatever. A lot of the Bedouins do that, and they see a stone pile, they think there's something buried there.
Marker. Yeah.
So, yeah, so they want to look it up, but it's called a tower tomb. That's the official name, and you can Google that and see lots of examples. There's published literature and peer-reviewed journals about them. We find almost exactly one that's preserved just like this in the Middle Valley near where Joel Richardson found the red-painted archers. Just right downhill from his site that he found is a stone structure just like this. And then in regards to the smaller furnaces that Jim mentioned in his lecture nearby, well, they're not furnaces. Those two are small tombs. You find exactly the same type of structures at the base of the split rock
Okay.
that the Saudis put up an archaeological sign. And in that one, you actually see bone fragments. They have like a little doorway, and you look inside. There's some modern trash, but there's also some bones in there.
Hmm.
And then just south of the split rock, at a kind of almost an undisturbed stone circle site, you
Right.
find a couple more of these. Like it has a square doorway with the rocks in front, and one of them is actually open, and then piles of stones on it. And again, they're tombs because you see the bones inside. So the stone piles are not furnace, and there's no evidence of slag or byproduct runoff that you find at other smelting sites like Timna or in
Mm.
Wadi Fayan, or I'm not saying that right, in Jordan, where there's a lot of mining going on during
Right.
the Iron Age and or before. So that's that about the stone piles. Now, what about the so-called molds, especially the one where we're saying, oh, maybe these were parts of the tabernacle they were molding out. Now
Yeah.
I
The
noticed,
rods
yeah.
and pins.
So we cleaned that out before I did the 3D scans in September, and I cleaned it out too in February of last year. Then in September again, we went back and we brushed it all out. We brought in some brushes and took out the loose rock, and then I scanned it with my app and it uses lidar, which is lasers, and these apps then can recreate the whole site in minute accuracy in 3D. Then you can export it to study it more or to even print it if you want to make a
Wow.
model. the
Right.
replica. Yeah. So this when you're in Northwest Arabia, because of the way the rocks are out there, you find a lot of crazy rock formations that have been eroded because of wind and rain. It
Right.
does get people say, "What rain? This is Saudi Arabia." Well, it does get snow out there. It does get massive storms once a decade, and every winter there's a storm. You can look on Twitter, people posting videos, like the most recent storm that went through last month. So when you're there, this is not unique. You'll find pitted rocks, and there's some just southeast of the Split Rock, which is on the west side of the mountain range, and there's some pitted rocks just like this right near the Golden Calf altar site,
Hmm.
where it just has holes all in it, where the erosion happened, where there's a softer part of the rock. I'm not a geologist, but there's different ways that rocks get formed, and sand blasted in and starts forming these holes.
Right.
Um, Now the difference between this site and Metsamor, you actually see a pattern, and I'll put a photograph, or someone can look it up online, of those sites in my video. But in Metsamor, you do see it's a man-made like metal form that they were pouring liquid metal into.
Gotcha.
This is just a bunch of random. There's really no form to it. There's a different size holes, and I noticed in Jim's last video he made, which was the one that went viral, he calls it like a holder for the vessels that were the molds. So
Right.
like you're saying, like, okay, they have these holes and they had a clay vessel that you were molding it, and then you put the vessels to hold it in there. So again, that all depends on that rock pile being a furnace, and this is where they smelted the metal. And then in regards to the winged cherubim site, this one, and it's hard to tell from this photograph, but we have in our 3D model of the site, again, we modeled the whole area around it, not just this one little rock. But you will see that these ribs in the rock are in other rocks in the area. So it
Hmm.
doesn't just form a wing just right there to say, oh, look, this is unique. It looks
Okay.
like a wing of an animal. When you actually see the 3D model, which you can turn around and look, you will see how this shape goes, and then see the other ribbed ridges on the other rocks nearby. And you
Right.
realize that that's not unique to this one spot. And
Okay.
even if it was unique, when you look at the 3D model and turn it around, it would be a weirdly shaped wing. Actually, the way it's hard to see depth there. That's not flat. It's
Yeah.
actually
No, there's
um,
going to be a curve to it.
yeah, and
Right.
and the way this curve is wouldn't be how he's forming it to be the back, the angel wings going over the Ark of the Covenant.
Right.
Um, and plus now we can do actual the measurements because now we have a 3D model. And I'll put let's see, the app I use, they have a public link where I can upload the models to. I don't know if that link gives you a measurement tool, but at least it lets you play around with it. I'll send you the link and you can
Oh,
post it
thanks.
for your viewers so they can in 3D on their browser. It's easier on a desktop or laptop, but you can do it on your phone too. And you can zoom in and out, turn it all the way around. Of course, you can look underneath because it's 3D, but
Right.
but yeah, you can see the surface of it and it better understand it versus a flat 2D photograph. So I'll send you
Awesome.
those
Okay.
links.
Appreciate that.
Anyways,
Um,
that's my long explanation about that site. And
yeah.
yeah, I'm sorry that people, in my mind, think they got hyped up before the real data got presented. And we even, a couple other groups asked us where this was, and I told them exactly where. And
Right.
initially, I saw them post some stuff on Facebook saying, "Oh, we're going to the metallurgical site," and then after that, it was kind of quiet. And I
Like,
think when you're there, when you're there, and you look at it, and you're like, "Okay, well, it's not what originally the YouTube title said."
yeah, the grand scheme of it. I got you.
Yeah.
So I've got two slides left, and we're literally at 58 minutes. I want to be
Oh, just keep on going.
respectful of your time. Um,
Yeah.
where is the what's the status of the blood at this point in time? The blood that Ron spoke about that he had checked out. Did you pick up anything off of that breadcrumb trail, or did you leave that one alone?
It's yes and no. So, not in regards to the blood. I know I have friends and others I know who make a lot of videos about this. And you see, notice on my channel, we have a couple on the Ark of the Covenant, but nothing like that's not our focus. It's just I'm focused on something I can say I saw, and I touched, and I can take people to. I can do it with the garden tomb. That's there.
Right.
But Ron's story is something someone wants to personally ask me that question, and I can discuss it and why I think
Yep.
it's there or not. But in regards to making it an issue of salvation or promoting it, saying you have to believe this, that Ron found it, I just don't have that opinion.
Understood.
Yeah, so I do. Here's what I know from the Bible. The ark disappeared. Everyone knows that. Where is it? Like, it disappeared from the historical record. Now, when did it disappear? Well, it's really interesting. Like, the last mention in the Old Testament, in the book of Jeremiah, he talks about there'll be a time where they'll say, I'm paraphrasing, like something like, that people won't say the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord anymore. Like, basically, it's gone from people's memory. Kind of like what we are today, minus the people making claims that they saw it. Like, most people, like, the Ark of the Covenant is not like the topic of the day. So before that, the last time it's mentioned is in the reign of Josiah, I believe. And he, when he cleaned out the temple and reformed the sacrificial system, because the temple had turned into a pagan site, and I think that's when they found the book of the law too. But it mentions one verse that says this: he told the priest to put the ark back, basically, like they were carrying it around on their shoulders. So
Right.
Almost makes it seem like they had taken it out of the temple due to this desecration, and these faithful priests were just kind of like taking like kind of how the ark was in that guy's house. I forget the guy's name, before it ended up in Jerusalem under King David. It was like 20 years in a location, and God really blessed them, it said. And so it's the same thing in Josiah's reign. But then you have I don't know how soon after that, I don't know how many years, but when the Babylonians came and destroyed Jerusalem and the temple, it lists very minute things that they took, like spoons and cups and bowls and whatever, this gold and silver items that they took from the temple back to Babylon, and that was returned by Cyrus. He gave them back to the Jews when they came back.
Wow.
But the ark and the major furniture that Moses had made, that King Solomon put in the temple, they aren't mentioned. So the Ark of the Covenant, table of showbread, the altar of incense, the menorah, these big items are not mentioned anywhere. And you would think that these most important things would be mentioned on the list, that the Babylonians took it, or that Bible would mention that they sadly got destroyed. God allowed the Philistines to take the ark, but not to destroy it. And it was protected. They got those sores, and their false god fell over, Dagon.
Yeah.
And they put, it's quite an interesting story, but God still protected it, even though the pagans had the ark. So I do believe and again, different apocryphal books like Maccabees. There's a couple other ones I'm forgetting that talks about either the earth swallowing up the ark, or that Jeremiah and the priest who were faithful to God before the Babylonians came, they hid it.
Right.
I believe that's true. Now, why did God want them to hide it? Obviously, there's a future purpose to the Ark of the Covenant, and the Ark has not been officially found like so far.
Right.
Like, not in the press, not like you can go see in a museum. You have stories of people who said they know where it's at. Now, I believe because of the time period of when it was hidden, the likely period being with this Babylonian, Ron brings this whole thing out in his presentation, that the Babylonians had the whole city of Jerusalem surrounded.
Yep.
And that was to be the perfect, that's when it kind of disappeared. And so the perfect place to hide it would be in one of the tunnels and cavities under Jerusalem, which is built on this limestone ridge that's full of natural cavities. And so I believe it's somewhere there. And I think it perfectly makes sense that theologically that the blood would go on the mercy seat. I can't prove it. In regards to like something today, the reports that Ron talked about where he had the blood tested, and there is no like someone that sent me a question earlier. It actually was on a comment on YouTube, and they're asking like, who has the sample today? No one has a sample. There is no sample.
Right.
It's not hidden in someone's basement anywhere. No one has come forward saying, I have a sample of the blood. People have claimed that they've seen a report that Ron was showing. I've never seen it myself, so I can't talk about what they saw.
Right.
But in regards to that, yeah, there's just basically, when Ron passed away, that was it. I believe that in the future, the Ark. It'd be the most spectacular, biblical archaeological artifact to be discovered. If a cave is opened up and boom, you have all these gold objects from the time of Moses in there, the original pieces of the tabernacle.
Right.
It'll be an amazing time, but until that time, there's nothing really to
follow up on.
So, yeah, exactly. Now
I got you.
there's a couple things, and we're making a video about this. I did. How can I word this? The Israelis did admit that they had photographs of Ron's excavation site.
Really?
And they didn't put it that way, but the way it was based on the time frame and the location, we know, and then comparing their photographs with Ron's, we know exactly where. We had a contact in Israel get access to these photos and get us copies for free. And it was like a 20-year thing where we were waiting for. When I first heard about this, when I was doing some investigations back in the 90s, and I kind of let it go. I just didn't want to, I don't know why I didn't follow up. But then a couple of years ago, I had somebody in Israel do a follow-up for me, and they were able to get access within a couple of days of these photographs and send them to me. And so, this was about 2 or 3 years ago this happened. I haven't made a video about it yet, but I will. And what it to me, and I'll explain this in the video better than here, but basically you have these different responses from the Israeli Antiquities Authority and from the Garden Tomb, including to me, where I wrote them and they faxed me back responses where they basically said either, number one, Ron Wyatt did not excavate, they'll claim, or he did it illegally, they'll claim, or we admit he did it, but please, we don't know anything about it. Please, if Ron could share us his data, we'd like to see it. So this is the type of responses you'd get from the IAA back in the 90s when I was,
right.
Again, I was in high school when I was doing this, writing these letters in early college years. And so that's the response. So when I came across this information about, there's some photographs from the Israelis of Ron's site, and this was an archaeologist, I was like, well, that just shows, number one, that they knew of Ron digging there. Now, why did they deny it? It could be just that they had a new personnel in place and they didn't know what was going on 20 years earlier or 10 years earlier, or that they did try to suppress it. And so, people can make their own mind up of what was going on. But so I'm hoping to make a video. I never told anyone. Only a few people know about this. Now,
Nice.
it's on YouTube. But we will make a video about that. It's not a photograph of the Ark of the Covenant, put it that way. But you do see some artifacts, and it was stuff found out, not in the chamber. So it's outside Ron's. He was tunneling in all this debris field, all that dirt that was there in the Garden Tomb.
Yeah.
But again, it was an official photograph, more than one, from the Israelis. And now that it's out, I better make a video quick. If someone goes and tries. But anyways, So in that sense, and kind of here and there, I've been, still, I know Ron's story, and I talk to people a lot about it, and like privately. But in regards to anything else, like making YouTube videos, I don't really. I put out stuff that Ron said. Like we just did his 1984 interview, which is quite interesting because that was kind of his first videoed. It was a small TV station, I think in Tennessee, that did it.
Yeah.
And so we put that out in full, and it's interesting comparing what he was saying back in '84, which is 2 years. This was October of '84, so this was 2.5 years after he claimed to have found the Ark in January of '82.
Right.
And then seeing what he said there compared to like the 90s, where we had a lot of videotapes of Ron's meetings and his interviews. So for historical purposes, that was really interesting because he said some things in there that was kind of not different, but interesting. We'll maybe make a video review of. I just put the video out. I didn't like talk about what Ron said or anything, but maybe we'll do a review of the video. But that video went viral. That was put out early December, and I think on our channel that video has at least 200,000 views or something. But
that's awesome.
People are interested in this stuff, but again, I don't have anything more to add because I've never seen it.
Yeah. And my last, and I thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate, again, just the honesty that you are displaying with respects to you're after the stuff that you can actually like suss out and investigate and rationalize yourself, which is amazing. this last clip really was just a curiosity. What is your opinion on the pyramids? I pulled this off of your channel as well.
Yeah, no, I want to make sure that people know that this is not my drone shot. I'm not gonna get in trouble.
Yeah.
What happened? I was in Cairo a couple years ago, and one of our guides said, "Hey, do you American was just here with a drone, and they flew it, and then the police were looking for the guy because they heard the drone, they couldn't find it. Then it crash landed in someone's backyard." Yeah. Anyways, he had copies of the footage on his phone, and he gave me all the footage.
That's awesome.
Because you're not allowed to have drones in Egypt, so this is not my footage. I don't want to get in trouble.
This isn't my footage either.
Yeah, so I go to Egypt, and I want someone coming up to me from the authorities saying, "Oh, we saw a YouTube video." Yeah, no, they will. People they see stuff, they want to know what's going on. So yeah, that's happened to others. In fact, a friend of mine, just getting a little off topic, he crashed his drone into the step pyramid. He was able to bring one in to the airport. I don't know how it happened, but he crashed it in the step pyramid. The police got a hold of the drone and him. Then they became all good friends. I mean, it was like God was on his side because they were all like friendly after that, and they gave him back. They gave him his footage, I think, and he didn't get arrested.
Right.
And they
maybe
started
this
following
is the footage.
It was the step pyramid, that one.
Oh yes, sorry.
Yeah, and they followed him on social media, my friend told me. So I thought that was kind of funny.
That's awesome.
But in regards to the pyramid, so I'm not an expert on this, but I was just watching a video a couple days ago by, I think it's the channel's called Ancient Architects. And he's kind of does the approach I do to a lot of things where it's very factual and logical, and he doesn't follow the ancient alien crowd or things like that. So but it was interesting because his whole video, at least the last one I saw that came out, and maybe he has a new one now, but it was like last week, I think. It was about the name of for the Great Pyramid, the biggest one, Khufu, right? And because they found his cartouche back in the 1800s inside the pyramid, and so the whole thing was about, what does it mean? Does it prove that he was the builder? And so it's a very good video because, yes, I have acquaintances and people go on my tours or email me, and I've seen videos obviously too, where people will say these are either, number one, let's say it's pre-flood, or number two, that it's another civilization that made it, and then the Egyptians came along later, or that it's aliens or something like that. And so, in regards to the pre-flood theory, I think the biggest thing that's against that, if you look at the force of a global flood, and I believe that the Bible does say that the whole world was destroyed, the pre-flood world was wiped out, and the whole terrain was changed, and there was such force that it killed all life, and there wasn't any man-made structures left afterwards, that I don't see how like the pyramids could be before the flood. The other thing in regards to the whole flood is that if you look at the geology of the area, the pyramids themselves, they are built on limestone deposits. Limestone is a sedimentary rock that's laid down by the flood or a sea, and you'll find little fossils all through this plateau, the Giza plateau where the pyramids are. And so you have, after the flood, this limestone rock is there, this natural platform that they carved into and made the foundation and built the pyramids on. And then the rocks themselves, the majority of rocks in the pyramids are sedimentary rocks. Now, I know some people say they're cement forms or whatever, but it's a very minority view. So you have rocks that are sedimentary rocks. You have the pyramids themselves built on a sedimentary platform. It can't be before the flood. Now, in regards to who built it, now it's interesting. Most people don't know this, but they found organic material in the pyramids, like wood. There's wood fragments, and I think some other things, but mainly the wood that's in it. Like when you go to the step pyramid and you go down to the chamber, they say that's the first true pyramid built. And in the center of the pyramid is the shaft tomb. This central shaft that goes down to the ground. At the bottom is a mastaba tomb. If you look up at the ceiling, and one of the guys pointed this out, there are some modern wood and then bolts where they hold everything in place so it doesn't fall down on the tourist. But you find ancient wood. Now, I think there's peer-reviewed articles about the carbon dating, and I'm being a young Earth creationist, I don't think things can be dated millions of years in the past. But what's interesting about this carbon dating for like something from the pyramids is that I think it was, they were saying in the videos I were watching about this, that it was within like 200 to 300 years of what traditional chronology has for when Khufu reigned and these, when they believe the pyramids were built during the fourth dynasty, that the wood carbon dated to within that range. And they even explained that it could be the reason why you have this 200 or 300 year difference, not tens of thousands of years, but 200 or 300 year difference is maybe the trees were much older and they cut them down and they finally used them in the pyramids, then that's why it would date for this wood that's in the pyramid. That's one explanation. But again, it's still within what you would think a time frame of within the fourth dynasty or the third dynasty, not way before like some pre-dynastic, pre-ancient Egyptian civilization that had some advanced technology.
Right.
And then there's sometimes once in a while you get people saying stuff like, "Oh, the pyramids were made to hold the grain from the 7-year famine." No, that's not true. They're mixing a couple things up. Ron believed that the step pyramid was a memorial to the 7-year pyramid or 7-year famine, and that nearby these shafts in the ground were storage bins for the grain. So I think they're kind of mixing that up when they hear this. But in regards to the actual pyramids, like there's just couple small chambers and corridors in there. It's not like some giant hollow shape where you can store grain. So the pyramids were not used to store the grain. And here's the other thing.
That'd be an interesting storage device, though. Like it.
But there's all these tunnels under the step pyramid. That's we got access in 2022. I was with a group and they wanted to see like 3 sites that were closed to the public. And so to get a permit, you had to pay like $2,500 to $3,000 per site to get access. And so thankfully we had a big enough group that we could do it and then divide the cost up. But so we went to 3 different sites, so almost $10,000 we were spending there, just to get access. And so one of the sites was going below the step pyramid into the actual tunnels that are all the way down there into the ground level, where you're walking right up to the central. You're in the central shaft and you're walking right up to the tomb. Like it's right there. And so there's a lot of tunnels. You'll see diagrams on the internet of all these tunnels under the step pyramid. And you'll see these jars. And they said there are tens of thousands. I don't know how many, but I remember it was thousands of jars. They said the jars were full of grain. And of course, the view is that it was for the afterlife of the pharaoh. But it's interesting that's the part where you do have grain associated with the pyramids, is that you do have a lot of jars full of grain under the step pyramid and the tunnels. But I want to briefly say one other point is that they found the diary of one of the guys in charge of bringing in the stone, moving the stone that was used in the pyramids. They found his diary or work diary, whatever you want to call it, on papyrus in a cave, one of the Red Sea ports. Okay. And they've been excavating this port, and so there are news articles about this. And this is not new information, but he was very detailed on the stones they're moving through for this project. And so here again, we have something that can be dated, and again, it's Egyptian hieroglyphs. It's not like some alien civilization or someone before the hieroglyphs were invented and all that. So it's definitely ancient Egypt, and it has the guy writing down stuff they're doing, this construction activity. And this is not just found in someone's basement. No, they found this during a professional excavation where they can say, "Hey, this papyrus, find it out this site in this cave that's near this Red Sea port." And so that's interesting. Then the other thing is that they've excavated on the Giza Plateau. They've excavated the workers' villages, those who were actually working on it. And what they found out is that these guys were paid by the pharaoh. They were well fed. They know the type of food they were being given, and they were not slaves. So it was like a government project.
Yeah.
So you have all this information that. So my view is this kind of the standard view. Again, I don't know if the chronology is always correct in regards to what pharaoh is what. And it's like the Exodus pharaoh, it's a big thing. But I still don't think there's anything out there that's showing that the ancient Egyptians did not build the pyramids. So if someone could show me a video that shows spacecraft hovering over it, or or something that was pre-flood technology or something. Otherwise, I'm still going with in this regards. I'm actually kind of a traditionalist. So for what my opinion's worth. I'm not an Egyptologist. I'm not a pyramid guy. I have a friend who runs a channel where he just studies this in depth, and so he probably has a lot more to say about it than I would.
Yeah.
But just
No,
what I know from my own, casual research.
yeah, I definitely took it, seeing it on your channel, I took it as an opportunity just to ask, what your thoughts were. More just curious because of the fact that, you're there experiencing the life, speaking to people of the culture, and, wondering if,
Yeah, we showed them on our first or second day of our tour for ancient Egypt, the Exodus route. We kind of build that foundation for what it was like for the Israelites to be slaves. So we take them to the museums and to some of these pyramid sites and into the land of Goshen. And so, yeah, in that regards, we do touch on it. People can go into the Great Pyramid. They go up the chamber to
very cool.
the Queen's or King's chamber, whatever that is in the middle. I've done it a couple times, but I'm kind of done with that. It's very hot and humid in there. And I'm a little claustrophobic. And so when you get a whole bunch of, like, a long line of tourists, you're basically, butt to butt. Your head is up to the guy in front of you, and you just kind of going all the way up until you get to the central gallery, whatever it's called. And yeah, so
You're hoping that no one had.
No one had any.
You're hoping no one had bad Mexican the night before, right?
Yeah, or bad Egyptian.
Touche. Andrew, I have to just thank you at this point. Honestly, it's been an absolute pleasure to walk with you through the information.
Time fly. Wow, just flew by.
80 minutes like that.
Well, I had a podcast with another friend, associate, whatever, for his channel, and he just said, "Okay, Andrew, let's do the whole route from ancient Egypt to Mount Sinai." And I was in Switzerland. I filmed at a friend's studio there. It was 4 hours. It took me a couple days to recover from that one.
Wow.
But he edited it down into segments. But that was a lot of talking.
Yeah, no, I mean, for me, I these engagements, I'm a people person, right? Man of scripture, humble witness, but I enjoy speaking to people about this because it's front and center, right? When you look at Adam and Eve to Abraham, 2,000 years, Abraham to Jesus, another 2,000 years, and then Jesus to us, another 2,000 years. Like, we're really sitting pretty close to that 6,000 year mark. And with, the potentiality of this Jubilee, the 1,000 years of peace, on the seventh day he rested, each day being, representative of 1,000 years, brother, like, to again have this conversation with somebody like you.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry, dude. Okay.
No, I was just saying, we're on the verge of, I know there's a number of groups that are doing that research, and some have set dates. I'm not a date setter, but I know we're on the verge of eternity. You look at the world around us; the signs are everywhere. You don't, like, how can the world last another 100 years or so? It just seems like everything's falling apart every day. Something new is coming up that that points to the end of the world. So,
well, and not to, I don't want to be, caught in the whole, like, it's the end, like Homer Simpson, like, run for your lives and anything like that. But just recognizing, that there is in fact a creator, and there, the Father, and the fact that he did send his son to do this thing for us on our behalf, right? Just to restore something that needed to be restored, and then give us that promise, so to speak, the great hope of this, afterlife and heavenly bodies and things like that. That to me is where, engaging with, somebody like you who's been out and touched the things that were touched by these great men of the past, it brings the scripture alive.
Yeah, and if you look at Ron Wyatt's life, he's the reason I got involved in doing this, and it wasn't even something I planned to do. But Ron's whole focus was to win souls. It wasn't about proving this or that or getting a name. He has many critics and many people who attacked him. But at the end, as you look at what his focus was, it wasn't give me a check, write a check, give me money. It was, hey, use this material to go prove the Bible to win souls. And I get questions too from people who wonder, like, well, what's the whole point of, you can say that's Mount Sinai, or that this is Noah's Ark? In the end, you're not going to be saved by believing that Jebel Makla is Mount Sinai versus St. Catherine's. But there are people just like doubting Thomas who needed physical evidence of the Bible, of what happened. And he asked for physical proof that Jesus rose from the dead. And God didn't turn him down. Christ appeared. He showed him the nail prints in his hands, the spear wound in the side. And of course, blessed are those who can believe without seeing. But God does not want anyone to perish. And so for those who need that proof, especially if they're not or already a believer, so you're looking at non-Christians or atheists, these people might need that extra physical proof that the Bible is true. And so these type of discoveries in the world of biblical archaeology and science and history, like creationism, this stuff is a tool that you can use to win souls.
Exactly.
And so for me, it's more important, how you're going to treat your fellow man, those who you disagree with, whether someone says this is the real Exodus route or that is, how you treat that person is more important than whether the Israelites walked up this one valley. And then, of course, using the knowledge that you have to bring it out to the masses. So like, YouTube or whatever method that God has given you, I think is way more important than being correct. Just like the metallurgicals, just like the metallurgical site. I might disagree about whether this is really the site that they used to make the wings of the Ark of the Covenant. But in the end, to me, that's down on the scale of what's important. And it's more important on how you're going to treat the person you disagree with.
Dude. And that's something that I say so often, is that people will forget how much you know, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And that's something that resonates on such a deep level, in line with what you're exactly saying, right? It's how you treat your fellow brother when you're showing them these things, not to claim that you're in fact the arbiter, but just something for consideration, right? Not projecting, but just respecting.
Yeah, you can present information, even biblical truth. It's the Holy Spirit that's going to work on the hearts of man and to convince them. And so our job is to be that witness in how we live our daily life and what we can present to people.
That was amazing, dude. Thank you so much. And honestly, that was an amazing closing. And brother, I send you all of the light, love of the Father and the Son, and on your journeys, brother. I pray for you so very much, and thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm happy to have this chance to share with you and your audience. So.
Appreciate that. Well, I've got your Discovered Media Discord. If there's anything you want to say to anybody listening, we've got 12 people listening right now. Discovered Media is Andrew's channel. So guys, please feel free to jump over to his channel, hit subscribe.
YouTube. Yeah.
YouTube. Hit subscribe. As well, he also has a Discord link as well that you can engage with and check out other stuff. So massive shouts to you, my friend. Be well on your journey.
Thank you. God bless.
God bless you as well, brother. Take care.